What is up, guys? One thing I wanted to say before we jump into the numbers is even though my brother and I did not meet our sub 4 hour goal for the marathon, I am still so proud of the run that my brother and I put up. We put up a strong run, man, for ourselves. We had our fuel dialed in, we had our pace dialed in, we ran hard, and we ran for the entire race, which is a huge accomplishment for both of us, especially me coming from last year. I started bonking out at like mile 16. And this year, my brother and I, we did not hit a wall. We did not cramp. We were able to run the entire race from start to finish. We just walked a couple of the hills just to save our legs, and then we also took a couple bathroom breaks. But besides that, we pretty much ran the entire time. And we even had energy at the end to really try to push for that sub 4 hour goal. We had just missed the goal by less than 4 minutes, so we were super close. But we aren't too upset about that because we really did put up a great effort. We had a super strong run, a very strong race, and everything went super well. We had no injuries, no cramps, no stomach issues, and we just had a blast, man. We were out there just running the whole time, and the fact that we were able to stay together the entire race is pretty incredible because over 26 miles, there's so many things that could happen to any individual at any point in time that would just derail you from running together. So the fact that we were able to just put up the exact same effort, the exact same strong race at the same time is pretty incredible. So I'm just super proud of my brother and I. We didn't meet the goal, but that's okay. We still had an amazing race for ourselves, and we're just stoked on it, man. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump into some numbers. I think we'll start with the training program. Okay, so here's a screenshot of my entire training block for the 2025 BMO Marathon. This was an 18-week training block. There are 2 weeks missing in the beginning that I did from a different training program. So I trained for a total of 20 weeks. Leading into this training block, I did have about 1 year of consistent running. I was running about 10 to 20 miles a week for a year straight heading into this training block, so I definitely had a very good base. This is called the Hal Higdon. This is a pretty advanced training block. It's definitely heavier on the miles. They had you running 6 days a week in the training block, which for me was definitely way too much. So as you can see, it probably looks like a mess to you guys, but as you can see, I made tons of modifications. Everything written here in black ink is stuff that I had to modify from the original training block. So for example, here the training program called for 9 miles. I ended up just doing 7. Down here, you can see I started doing bike workouts instead of the run just because my legs were getting so banged up. I needed to do a less impact style workout to save my legs. So I ended up changing the Monday workouts to just bike workouts on stationary bikes. I actually ended up really liking this. If I were to redo this training block, I would probably make all Mondays a bike workout just because it helps save your legs a little bit, takes impact off your legs, and then cross training like that I think is super beneficial. You can see up here, this is when I hurt my knee. I ended up getting a knee injury right after this long run. I tried fighting through it on these 2 days, but then I just realized this is just too bad of a knee injury. If I keep running on it, I'm going to end up making it way worse. So I ended up missing 10 days of running. This whole week here was 0 miles. So over here is the total miles for the week. So these are the miles the training block called for. These are the miles I actually got. As you can see, I did not meet any of the total miles for the week after like week 4. Even here, I'm like 30 miles less. So yeah, I just kind of use this training program as like a good starting base, and I just modified it as I needed, as I continued to train and as my body was going through stuff. You just have to accommodate your body. Like, this is ideal if you can do this training program, but obviously stuff happens. You face injuries, you face illness, so you're just gonna have to modify as you go. So that's one cool thing about marathon training as well, is it kind of teaches you to persevere and to compromise. So yeah, one last thing I wanted to note down here is I did a pretty heavy taper these last 2 weeks because by the time I got to these last 2 weeks, my body was banged up. I was dealing with all kinds of little ailments. I had sore ankles, I had bad calves, my calves were tight and just in pain. My hamstrings were tight and in pain. So I knew I really needed to take a pretty heavy taper. Even this weekend here, it was calling for 12 miles. I didn't even run at all. I just did bike workouts. And then the last week heading into the marathon, I really just tapered down, took it easy, rested up. And doing this really proved super beneficial because when I got to race day, I felt fresh. Everything felt strong. I really needed this taper pretty bad, and it worked out pretty well. So there you have it. I know it probably looks like a mess to you guys, but it makes sense to me. but this is my entire training block for the 2025 BMO Marathon. Okay, now let's jump into what I did to fuel myself while I ran this race. Fueling started like 3 days prior, actually. My race was on Sunday. I started carbing up on Thursday. I had a total of 799 grams of carbs on Thursday and 205 ounces of fluids. And in those fluids, I made sure I had high electrolytes. So I put some pink salt in my water. I did some electrolyte powder here and there. The next day, Friday, I had another 800 grams of carbs. And then I had about 190 ounces of fluids. Same thing, high electrolytes. And then Saturday, so the day before the marathon, I did 913 grams of carbs. And then I did reduced fluids. I did only about 60 ounces of fluids the day before, and a little bit reduced electrolytes. So the way I got a lot of my carbs was some pretty clean carbs. I did a lot of white rice, a lot of sweet potatoes, a lot of sourdough toast, bananas, honey. Those were like my main carb sources. I did have some candy here and there, and I did have some blueberry muffins as well. But I've noticed for my body that if I do super clean carbs, I feel much better. Like you can go out and carb up on like donuts and brownies, cookies and ice cream, but a lot of those carbs have tons of fat as well. And so I've noticed for my body that if I have too fatty of foods, I end up having stomach issues when I'm running, and I just did not want to have that. So I kept it pretty clean on this carb up. And then leading into the race, so the morning of the race, I ended up having 170 solid carbs and 60 liquid carbs. So for my liquid carbs and my liquid electrolytes, I used BPN supplements. So this is the BPM electrolytes. This is the BPN G1M Sport. So this has 20 grams of carbs per scoop. So I took 3 scoops of this in the morning to get 60 grams of carbs liquid. And then 170 grams of carbs solid foods, which was 1 whole banana, 2 slices of sourdough toast, lots of honey. And then I ended up having 2 Go bars. This is also BPN as well. These Go bars have 36 grams of carbs per bar. I ended up having 2 of these. And these also have 140 milligrams of sodium. This has 500 milligrams of sodium per scoop. And then the G1M has 350 milligrams per scoop. So when it was all said and done, I had about 240 grams of carbs in the morning and almost 3,000 milligrams of sodium in the morning before the race. So that was all the pre-race fueling. And then about 15 minutes before we started, I did have a Go Gel. This is also BPN. I am not sponsored by BPN, though I wish I was. I don't think I am extreme enough for BPN to want to sponsor me, but I love their products. They make great products. I had this about 15 minutes before start line. This is a Go Gel. This has 24 grams of carbs in it, and it has 100 milligrams of sodium. And this is also what I used as my gels throughout the whole race. On race day, it was pretty sunny and it was pretty warm. It was like 63 degrees. And in direct sunlight, when the sun's just beating on your face, it makes a huge difference. You sweat much more. And I am a pretty salty sweater, so I knew I needed to keep on top of my sodium throughout the race. So my goal for the race fueling strategy was at least 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams per hour was what I wanted to get. And then minimum 60 grams of carbs per hour. So during the race, I was, like I said, taking Go Gels, and then I was using this Bolt Energy Chews. One of these bags has 46 grams of carbs in it, so they pack a huge punch, and they have 150 milligrams of sodium in them. And then I was taking one of these electrolyte tablets every 30 minutes. This electrolyte tablet has 215 milligrams of sodium in it. It also has a lot of good potassium and magnesium. I love these things. I was literally taking 1 tablet every 30 minutes of this religiously throughout the race. I ended up taking 2 of these chews in total throughout the race. I ended up taking 3 of these gels in total throughout the race. I packed 8 gels with me just in case. I thought I was going to use at least 6. I ended up only using 3 of these, but that's also because during the race, they were handing out these things called Exact bars. They're like another fueling brand, and I ended up really liking those. They were like these little chewable bars. They had 25 grams of carbs per bar. I ended up taking 4 of those throughout the race. And then we were hitting pretty much every aid station. They were handing out Noon Hydration, which is like an electrolyte mixture, and water. So we hit almost every aid station and took some Noons and took a bunch of water. Toward the end, I was probably having at least 1 cup of Noon, 2 cups of water, and then taking the 3rd cup of water and pouring it on my head. That was like every aid station. So after doing the math, I calculated that I had about 240 grams of carbs throughout the whole race, which equates to about 60 grams of carbs an hour. So I met that goal. And then I probably had almost 5,000 milligrams of sodium throughout the race. I crushed that goal, and I'm glad I did because I felt so good energy-wise throughout the whole race. And I know for a fact it's because I made sure I kept up on my sodium because I was sweating like a dog, man. I was sweating out there. The sun was beating on your face, and you're just sweating bullets that whole race. I was soaked in just my own sweat, so I definitely needed that sodium. And I'm so happy that I was able to stay on top of that and just be putting in the sodium throughout the whole race. So 240 grams carbs, 5,000 milligrams of sodium. That was during the race. And it worked out really well because my brother and I, we did not bonk out. We did not hit the wall. We had no cramps. Didn't cramp one time the whole race, which is, praise Jesus, no cramping. I cramped so bad last year. I started cramping at mile 20. I could barely even run a quarter mile without just cramping up. I was cramping up in both my calves, both my quads, and both my hamstrings last year. Like, you can barely even run when you're cramping. This year, no cramps at all. It was amazing. And just no stomach issues either. Didn't have to crap myself. No problems with the stomach. So everything was just super, super dialed on the fueling. It felt so good. I'm so happy that we dialed that in and just pretty much hit a home run on fueling, because that is probably the most important part about running a marathon, is fueling your body properly. I think we nailed it on the head this race, so that feels really good and really encouraging going forward. A lot of confidence going forward in fueling strategy, so really happy about that. And so yeah, that was my fueling strategy for the 2025 BMO Marathon. Okay, last but not least, let's look at the race stats for the marathon. I wore the Garmin Forerunner 965. I tracked the whole race on my Garmin. So here is the stats. The total race for my watch clocked out to about 26.5 miles, which is over a quarter mile longer than the 26.2. But I think a lot of this has to do with bobbing and weaving in and out of runners, and also if you're taking corners at a wider corner than like how the race was routed, because a lot of the corners can be pretty wide, and if you end up taking a wide turn on a lot of different corners, you can just add distance over time. And so that's pretty common among marathons to not clock in exactly at 26.2. Time on my watch was 4 hours, 3 minutes, and 53 seconds. My official time ended up being 4 hours, 3 minutes, and 51 seconds. Average pace was 9 minutes and 12 seconds per mile. This includes the walks that we did up the hill and our bathroom breaks. So our average running mile is usually right around 9 minutes, but with the walking up the hills and then the bathroom breaks, that kind of just adds this little 12 seconds on there. Total ascent for the race was 915 feet. Total calories burned, I burned nearly 4,000 calories, which is absolutely insane. Here's a picture of the map across the whole route. This is where you start, right around Queen Elizabeth Park. Then you run all the way up into the University of British Columbia. This right here is the Camel Sun Hill. This is the big hill that we ended up walking just to save our legs. This is right around mile 5 or 6. There's also a few more hills right in here because you're climbing into the campus. The campus sits on this one big hill over here. And then right along here is a massive downhill. You just can cruise down this hill, but we ended up walking a little bit of this because Caleb started feeling his knee getting tight going down the hill, because you would think going down the hill was just super easy, you can just breeze it, but honestly it hurts just as much because you're just pounding down this hill. It hurts your knees, hurts your quads, hurts your ankles. So we ended up walking a little bit of this as well. And then right here is the last hill of the race, crossing the bridge into the city. We did walk a little bit of this hill as well. I think walking the hills was super beneficial because if you try to run the hills, you're not saving that much time because you're barely trotting up the hills anyways. And then trotting up the hills can just wreck your legs, and then your legs are just fatigued the rest of the way. So I think walking these hills was super beneficial for us. It kept our legs fresh, and we were able to push this last flat part in the Stanley Park area. So yeah, that's the route. So right here are some charts of elevation, pace, heart rate. My average heart rate for the whole race was 169 beats per minute. I think my max heart rate got up to like 187. My average cadence for the run was 167 steps per minute. And so here is a bunch of numbers that Garmin tracks. You can see my cadence there, my max cadence. You can see our total elevation gain, our total descent. We descended almost 1,100 feet, which is pretty wild. Here is my total estimated sweat loss, 4,064 milliliters. And if you try to calculate your sodium loss based on like the average sweat loss of a human being, I think this equates to like over 3,000 milligrams of sodium. But I think I'm a saltier sweater than the average person, so I definitely lost more sodium than that. And so getting that 5,000 milligrams in the race was super crucial for me. This right here is our walk time. So we only walked a total of 9 minutes throughout the whole race, which means we were on our feet running for 3 hours and 54 minutes, which honestly is outrageous to even think about, that I was legitimately running for 3 hours and 54 minutes. I mean, if you told me I was going to do that 3 years ago, I would have just laughed at you, because that's just insanity to even think about. But it's pretty cool to see my improvement in running, that I'm even able to run that long and feel good. So that's pretty neat. We'll go back up here though and look at my splits for the race. This is where you're going to see all of our mile times. First mile, we eased into it, ran about a 9:29, and then we picked it up and we started hitting our paces. Next 4 miles, we were sub 9. This is where that big hill came in and we walked it, so that ended up being a lot slower. And at the top of the hill, we ended up stopping for a bathroom break, and I had to retie my shoes because my shoes were actually too loose. And I was starting to get a blister in my right foot only 7 miles in, and I knew that that was not good. So I stopped and retied my shoes. So that was a little bit slower of a mile as well. But then we picked it right back up, started hitting sub 9 or right around 9 for the next 5 miles. And then at mile 13, this was coming down the hill from UBC. We did walk a little bit of that downhill, so that ended up being a little bit slower, right around the halfway mark. And then we picked it right back up, started running sub 9s or right around 9 minutes for the next few miles. And then this mile here, mile 19, is the last hill heading into the city, up and over that bridge. We walked a little bit of that, so a little bit slower mile there. And then this was the last push, the last 6 miles around Stanley Park. We were pushing, and we were putting up some pretty good times. I think right here was our second bathroom break, so that's why this one's a little bit slower. But we started pushing here. We were like, we're so close to the sub 4. Let's try to push for this. Let's try to get it. And we had energy for it, and we were running and gunning. We were passing people left and right, trying to get to this sub 4. So that's a testament to our feeling as well, that we had the energy to push like this at mile 22. We put up some good times. Like mile 24 was an 8:56. Mile 25 was a 9:03. Like we were still on our pace, pushing hard, and running strong at the end of the race here, which I'm super, super proud of, because last year I was just limping and gimping my way into the finish line. And so this year, to be able to be running strong miles and feeling good into the finish line felt so great, and I'm so proud of that. So yeah, those are the splits for the race, and that is all the cool numbers for the race as well. So yeah, there you have it. There's some extra logistics to my race, the 2025 BMO Marathon. Hope you guys found that interesting. I'm kind of a nerd, so I love all that additional info and stats and numbers and fueling strategies and all that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that as well. If you have any questions that I did not address during all that information, just leave it in the comments. I'll try my best to answer it. It feels crazy that the marathon is now behind me. I already don't know what to do with myself. I guess we'll just have to keep an eye out for the next big physical challenge to embark on. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.